The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I...
Order. I apologise to the Leader of the Opposition. Order. I ask some courtesy to be shown, please. The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I also start by wishing everybody here a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and also by thanking you for the way that you've handled the goings-on in the House over the past year with dignity and patience. And I wish you all the very best with your future, whatever that might be. And we know, sir, that whoever is going to fill your shoes, whether it be Maurice Williamson or Toe Henry, will have big shoes to fill. That's when Stephen Joyce makes up his mind who it's going to be, is going to be the Speaker. So thank you, sir, for your time in the chair. Thank you also to all of those people in and around the Parliament that make this place work, to the staff in our offices who work the long hours working for our MPs and supporting them, to the messengers that keep the information flowing, the cleaners who make our offices livable, the cafe workers who keep us fed and caffeinated, and the security guards who keep a watchful eye on us all. I'd also like to thank the parliamentary staff and the Office of the Clerk for their work on research and in their legislation. All of those people do their job with good humour, with patience and with grace, putting up with us politicians. Thank you also to the other leaders of the opposition parties. We are like a family in many ways. We don't always agree, but usually we make it work. Although thankfully, like some families, it's probably a good idea that we don't spend Christmas together. And finally, thank you to the press gallery for what can only be described as fair and balanced reporting of my first and honeymoon year. I love your work as much as you say you love mine. Mr Speaker, for the government, this is the year they would like to forget, and many of them have tried very hard to do exactly that. 2012, sir, will be described as the year of the brain fade, the year that the PM's memory suddenly went gone. The year that spawned a whole new lexicon of one-liners like, you can recall, I can't remember, I don't recall, I haven't read that report, I don't have that piece of paper with me, and my personal favourite, that's one person's recollection. I have another movie idea for Warner Brothers. It's called Partial Recall. It started with John Banks and John Key having that cup of tea together over a year ago. Both couldn't remember the conversation. But it later turned out that they were actually talking about New Zealand First and senior citizens, including one senior citizen that they knew very well together, Don Brash. John Banks continued the theme. He didn't remember meeting .com, despite being flown to his mansion in a helicopter for dinner, and meeting .com's wife, who he described as the most beautiful woman in the world. Well, I can tell you that if I had said that to another woman in the presence of my wife, she would never let me forget. John Key caught that brain fade bug. He didn't want to read about Banks because he'd need to remember what he said about ethical standards and answer questions. He didn't recall hearing about the new resident of the largest mansion in New Zealand in his electorate. He didn't recall Kim.com was wanted by the highest levels of the US establishment. He didn't recall knowing about GCSB, his own spy agency, listening to Kim.com's conversations. He couldn't recall speaking to the GCSB staff about it either. And he didn't know that his Deputy Prime Minister signed a once-in-a-decade ministerial certificate to try and hush up that spying. The reality is not that he didn't know, the reality is that he didn't want to know. Yes, this Prime Minister has forgotten a lot this year, from how he voted on the drinking age, whether he did a backroom deal for more pokies with Sky City, to exactly who it actually was who landed at the Wellington airport just last week in the intelligence agencies of the United States. But I'm sure there are one thing that we can be quite clear about, that he's unlikely to receive a Christmas card from the Beckhams this year. Remember, too, that David Beckham spent years at Manchester United wearing a gay red shirt every week. And I recall, Sir, Mr. Speaker, that it was after the comments that the Prime Minister made about a week later that he was seen alongside other world leaders in one of those pink shiny numbers with the padded shoulder pads, strutting his stuff. And I thought, karma gets you in the end. Carmen. Or Carmen. The National Party might want to forget, but New Zealanders, as they go into the barbecue season, the Christmas season, sir, will not forget. And what is it that this government would like you to forget? Well, unemployment is at the highest level in 13 years. In fact, the highest level since National was last in government. Exports were down by 11%. Inequality increased by the highest amount in the OECD to the highest level in our recorded history. The current account deficit, sir, is the highest in the developed world, exceeding Greece. And as one member of our party would like to say, the worst economic growth in 50 years. A thousand Kiwis are just giving up and going to Australia each week. And why? Because they can't see an economic plan. Because the economic plan that this government has is basically about selling stuff. And when you look at what's being sold, you realise that it's not only a bad idea, but actually the price for what you're going to get is going to hit an all-time low, whether it be Mighty River Power, Meridian, Solid Energy, Air New Zealand. But that's okay, because we can sell rural land. Our agricultural land can still be flogged off. Or you can reach into the pockets of problem gamblers and subsidise Sky City. Another great economic idea. And when you have run out of all those ideas comes the big idea, which is about rebuilding Christchurch. And when you know that that's the big idea that the government has for economic growth, that there is no ideas that this government really has for giving economic growth to this country. And then they would like you to forget a number of other things, Mr. Speaker. The number of times that sensitive data made it out into the public. ACC, the Ministry of Social Development, IRD, and I could keep on going. And then you come to education, sir, and this is what you would like to forget as well. Education. Remember those class sizes that were going to be increased to actually enhance teacher quality. And then there were charter schools where you didn't actually have to be a qualified teacher in order to teach in a charter school to make that even better. And then there's the idea to close down the schools in Christchurch, even if they don't need to be closed down. And by the way, you don't need to talk to anybody before you actually go out there and do it. It used to be, sir, that when you criticised the Education Ministry, you still got paid at the end of the month. Not anymore. No, there's no guarantee of that either. So as we go into Christmas, Mr. Speaker, we reflect back on the year and we realise it's been a dismal one for New Zealand. But there's an upside. There's an upside. And the upside is that it's been a year of opportunity for the opposition. So I'd like to give credit where credit's due, and thank the government for the help they have been giving to the opposition all year. Providing those easy targets, setting the bar to even new low levels, achieving none of their goals and promises. It's a year, sir, they would love to forget. Some of it they already have. And I'd like to encourage them to keep it up, sir, as we go into the holiday season. And finally, sir, I'd just like to say once again to everybody here, because I don't believe people appreciate sometimes how hard everybody works, a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and please have a restful and safe holiday. Thank you very much.
Before I call the next honourable member, I was remiss